Hey, what's up? Chris Seiter here, founder of Ex-Boyfriend Recovery. Today, we're going to be talking about 7 signs that prove your ex can't stop thinking about you. But before we dive into that, the first thing I would like to recommend for you to do, if you're wanting to get your ex back or you're interested in knowing what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back, is to stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com. There, I put together a special quiz designed to answer, hey, do you even have a chance of getting your ex back? So all you have to do if you want to take that quiz is simply look in the description below this YouTube video, click on the link that you see there. It's going to take you to a page that's going to direct you to ask, or it's going to ask you a bunch of questions about you, your ex, and your time in your relationship together. Then based on how you answer those questions, it's going to direct you to a page that's going to spit out a score that will tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. Again, taking this quiz is super simple. All you have to do is simply look in the description below the YouTube video, click on the link you see there. The quiz should only take you about 2 minutes to complete, and you should get an idea of what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. And also, we're going to give you personalized information on how you should go about getting your ex back. All right, let's begin the video. So what are some of the signs that your ex can't stop thinking about you? Today, we're going to be covering 7. Now, I do realize there are more than 7 signs that your ex won't be able to stop thinking about you, but what I'm going to be covering here are the most common signs and signs that I actually have stories, statistical proof, or just experience enough in to see happen enough to know that these exist and there's a reason they exist, because that's how it is. All right, so let's just hit the ground running. The very first sign is that they'll react in some way via social media. Now, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people don't realize this, but a few years ago, I believe in 2012, there was actually someone who did a study on Facebook stalking, right? I believe the term is Facebook creeping, and that person actually was doing it for her master's thesis, and she interviewed a lot of people who had gone through breakups and asked them just straight up, hey, have you ever looked at your ex's profile? And she found that around 88% of the people that she interviewed said yes, that they had Facebook creeped on their most recent ex. So this is actually statistical proof showing you that it's highly likely, there's close to a 90% chance that your ex is going to be stalking you on Facebook or looking at you on Facebook. So when you consider social media in general, if they like your photos, they comment on your photos, they comment on your YouTube videos if you have a YouTube channel, they comment on your Twitter, they do something on your Instagram, they respond or react in some way to Snapchat. If they do anything or react in some way, positive or negative on social media, it's a good sign that they can't stop thinking about you. So that's the most basic sign. Let's move on to the next sign, and that's if they ask about you when they run into a mutual friend. And for this one, I'd like to tell a personal story. When I went through my very, very first breakup, I was about 18 years old. I was in high school at the time. I had just graduated from high school, and that summer after graduating from high school, I broke up with my girlfriend. Now, all throughout our relationship, my girlfriend used to tell me that she had a crush on some other guy. But when she met me, that crush stopped. And let me tell you, there's nothing more disheartening or even angering than having your girlfriend tell you that she used to have a crush on some other guy and that guy was present all the time, right? So obviously when we went through the breakup, big shocker, who's the very first person that she dated after the breakup? Well, this guy, right? And I'll never forget it. I was with my best friend at his house at the time, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call and he just walks out the door. And his dad and I were actually, I think we were watching like a UFC fight or something like that. And we looked at each other and was like, that's kind of weird. I just kind of chalked it up to the fact that he's trying to sort of get some girl and he didn't want to be near his dad or me when he was having a conversation with her.
About 30 minutes later, he walks back in and he actually proceeds to tell me that that was actually my ex-girlfriend. And my ex-girlfriend had called him up to just sort of vent about the fact that she made a mistake by leaving me and that she didn't realize how good of a boyfriend that I actually was to her and how the new guy isn't treating her that way. And it always kind of made me feel good inside, sort of like I got the last laugh a little bit. And I think it's also a good indication if your ex gets in touch with any of your mutual friends together, because he was friends with her and me. Obviously, me, I was kind of his best friend, and she just kind of met him through me. But if they get in touch with a mutual friend and that mutual and vent to that mutual friend and that mutual friend tells you about it, it's a good sign that they can't stop thinking about you. All right, the next one is actually they log into your shared accounts. It's often overlooked, but it's kind of a ninja way for you to tell if they're looking at you. I'll give you an example. I actually share my Netflix account with my parents and my brother. Yes, they mooch off me. Weirdly enough, usually it's the kids who mooch off the parents, but my parents mooch off me. And I love them, and I have no problem with them doing it. I just want to put that out there. But one of the cool things about Netflix is they allow you to look and see who's logged into your account and what they've been watching. And so for kicks, I actually did it for the last couple of days here, and you can actually see a whole lot of children's sort of shows, and that's actually me because I have a 3-year-old daughter and we watch Barbie and Sophia the First. But every once in a while you can see I have some arrows pointed here, and those are actually my parents and what they're watching. You can see they average watching about one movie or something a day on my Netflix account. It's kind of cool to see. But one thing you can do is run this little test with your ex if you shared Netflix accounts and they continue to log in. And I think you can even do this with Hulu and Pandora and Amazon Prime. You could do this with almost all sort of shared media accounts. You can look and see if your ex is logging in, and they won't be able to separate necessarily the two. If they're logging into your account, at one point they're going to be thinking of the time that you Netflix and chilled. At another point they could be thinking of you just in general. And it's a good sign that, you're kind of that constant reminder for them. It's a good sign that they're constantly thinking about you. The next one is they actually change their social media behavior completely. This is kind of a fun one to talk about, because in my opinion, human beings are often defined by patterns. And if you really think about it, patterns make up our entire lives. I have a certain work pattern that I like to get into. I have a certain workout pattern I like to get into. I eat the same kinds of foods. There's a pattern to it. There's even a pattern to how I post on social media. And if you've noticed your ex per se post on average about one post on Facebook per day, let's say, and all of a sudden that behavior changes completely after your breakup, something had to happen to cause that behavior to change. And often it's the breakup with you. So that means they're going to be thinking about you. And this can also swing the other way. If they never post on social media, but all of a sudden they go to posting a lot on social media, this is a good indication that they're almost trying to prove that they're okay or something like that, and that they're thinking about you. All right, so this is another kind of an interesting one that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but that's when your ex gets in touch with you at weird times. So what does this one look like? Well, quite frankly, this one is, I'm often quoted as saying the battle for getting your ex back doesn't really happen in the things that you say or do. It happens when your ex is kind of left alone. They actually have time to process. And oftentimes when they have time to process things, they're going to get in touch with you at weird times, because let's say 12 o'clock, midnight at night, right? They've been sitting for an hour thinking about their time with you, and some memory sparks them to action and they want to reach out and call you or something like that. If you start noticing a trend of calls happening in weird times that aren't normal for average people, or maybe even normal for them, it's a good sign that they can't stop thinking about you. All right, so this is another one that's kind of an interesting one, and that's if your ex shows up at places that you frequent. I am not a really big believer in big coincidences. It's possible for you to show up to a party, have fun at the party, and see your ex. It's possible that that's just, a coincidence. It's probably not possible if you go to another party the next week and they show up. If you are working and you happen to look up and see them shopping outside of your work because your work is in a shopping area. If you see them pretty frequently in places that you frequent, it's a good sign that they are trying to put themselves in a position to talk to you and are thinking about you. And the final one is if they hold on to your items. Now, what does that mean if they hold on to your items? Well, when we're in relationships, we often exchange items with different people, right? So sometimes people will have our clothes, for example. That's a pretty common thing. And then often when you go through a breakup, you sort of exchange your items back and forth, sort of like, hey, here's your items, you give me mine. But every once in a while, you'll find an ex will hold on to one of your items. And the thinking behind that is if they hold on to one of your items, they could be sort of using it as an excuse to see you again. And they'll use the pretenses of, hey, I forgot to give you your awesome hoodie. If you want to set up a time, we can potentially just exchange items. It's a good idea that they're kind of having a memento of you around and sort of an instant date for an excuse, and also a good sign that they're constantly thinking about you and it's driving them nuts. So those are the most common signs that your ex is constantly going to be thinking about you. Now, I do not doubt that there are more. And if you think I missed any of the big signs, make sure you comment on the YouTube video below. I'll see you guys next time.